Hi, everybody. Welcome to my homestead and welcome to my channel. My name is Jared. Today is the day of the eclipse. We've been waiting for this for so long, and it's happening today. Let's take a look really quick at the map. Just as a reminder, it's going to be passing through Utah. I haven't found anywhere else that I feel is too significant other than the fact that it's going to go through Corpus Christi in Texas, which means body of Christ. So I think that that's interesting. The thing that interests me more, again, for the 1 millionth time, is the fact that the path of totality misses all the temples in Utah, except for one. Remember this one right here, the Manti Temple. It is under renovation at the moment. You go to the church website, Manti Utah Temple closed during renovation. So it's currently not commissioned. And then the Ephraim Temple right here has not been constructed yet. So the only one in the path of totality is the Monticello, Utah Temple. Very odd. And yeah, so you have that going on. This is 1 week after the war started with Hamas. Today is going to be the 1 week mark. It's been 7 days. So that's kind of interesting how that played out. And then also, let's see, let's hop on over really quick to my Second Coming timeline. So here you have the war with Hamas, and right now I'm just calling it the Hamas war until it receives some other name. So that's been going on. And in between then and now, there have been 2 temples that have been dedicated the day after the war started. The Feather River, California Temple and the McAllen, Texas Temple. So 2 new temples. In case you want to see that really quick, the Feather River is up here in Northern California. It's north of Sacramento and west of Reno. Okay, and south of Redding, California. So this is the Feather River, California Temple. Looks like it's in Yuba City or near there at least. So that is a new temple, and then the McAllen Temple is at the, in this southernmost point of Texas, south of Corpus Christi. There's Corpus Christi up there. The path of totality, last I checked, it's not going to go over this temple, but this is now dedicated right there on the border with Mexico. So I don't know. We'll have to take note of the fact that this eclipse is taking place today. I think that it is significant. Remember, this eclipse, along with the one in 2017 and the one coming up in 2024, all of them go over significant church sites. I feel like all 3 of these eclipses are very LDS specific, and I've covered that in other videos. So we'll just have to watch and see what happens, if anything, today. Okay, got a couple updates. I want to show you what's going on in Israel, a few things, and then we're going to, at the end of the video, talk about President Nelson's generation. There was a comment that was brought up where it's like, well, you do a good job, Jared, on this channel. I can't really agree with the whole thing about President Nelson being the generation that Joseph Smith was talking about that'll see the second coming. And I have a response to that. I'm not going to bring up the comment because I don't want it to seem like I'm arguing with this person, or it's not meant to be mean-spirited or anything like that. I do want to shed some light on that topic, though, some things that I think that you'll like to see. It's not so much about President Nelson, and I hope that I didn't convey the fact that I think that President Nelson specifically is that person or fulfills that prophecy. I feel it's more about his generation, but I'll show you all the details about that later. It's actually pretty interesting. But before all that, let's check out Israel. So, actually, before that, I haven't updated the Flood the Earth Challenge, but just as a reminder, or in case you haven't seen it yet, we're at 7,089 copies of the Book of Mormon that have been shared so far. So please consider sharing more. Try to get to 10. That's the channel goal. And if you haven't joined yet, then join. And we'll see if we can get this to 10,000. That's the ultimate goal, and then hopefully beyond. All right. So there was a First Presidency message that was put out, a First Presidency letter having to do with the war that just erupted in Israel. It's short, but this is what it says, in case you haven't seen it yet. The First Presidency of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints issued a statement on Middle East violence, which was published Thursday, October 12th on churchofjesuschrist.org. The statement reads, quote, "We are devastated by the recent eruption of violence and loss of life in the Middle East. Violence of this nature is abhorrent to us and is not in harmony with the gospel of Jesus Christ, which is a gospel of peace. At such times, our hearts ache for all victims of this atrocity." I want to highlight that because I did a video talking about the fact that it's really easy to fall into the, oh, it's us versus them, and I'm for Israel, and all Palestinians, are horrible. That's not the case. Do not think in black and white terms. There are innocent people on both sides, and there are bad actors, I think, on both sides. Not saying anything against Israel. I haven't seen anything that's been bad, but down at the individual level, there's things that can happen. Individual soldiers maybe that could take it too far, or who knows. But whatever the case, do not fall into that trap. Do not do the us versus them. Pray for everybody that's innocent, that doesn't want this to happen, and there are people on both sides. That doesn't mean that you can't support Israel. I support Israel. But I support this coming to an end, hopefully as peacefully as possible, and hopefully with a permanent solution. All right, continuing. As servants of God, we affirm that he calls upon all of us to love our neighbors as ourselves, and we pray for a peaceful resolution of all conflicts. Got this from Joni. Have an update on the BYU Jerusalem Center. BYU Jerusalem Center announces students and faculty will continue studies in Greece. So it looks like they watched my video that I just did about Jerusalem. I'm just kidding, of course. We had noted that, let's go over there right now. I had noted from what I had seen in news articles. Let me turn this on. Let's see, Jerusalem. Give me just a second. So all these red place markers right here. These are all places where I'd seen reports, whether on Twitter or news articles, about clashes between Palestinians and Israeli forces or police. So there has been quite a bit. And actually, there's a new one that I have on here. It's this one right here. No, not that one. Where did it go? No, right here. Here it is. Wadi al-Jaz. So this most recent clash in Wadi al-Jaz looks like it's the closest that we've seen so far to the BYU Jerusalem Center, which is this blue place marker right here. Here's the BYU Jerusalem Center, and then just right over here, just across the valley, there was some action taking place, and I have video of that. I'll share that later. But yeah, you can see that over the last few days, there has been a lot of stuff going on in and around Jerusalem. So I think that that's a really good move. All right, so that's it for that. Students are going to Greece. Okay, Netanyahu, we've hit Hamas hard, but it's only the beginning. All right, so I just have a couple things from this article from the Times of Israel. Okay. We're hitting our enemies with unprecedented force, he says, but I stress it's only the beginning. I want to stop and think about that for just a minute. He's saying that what we have already done has not happened before. The force with which we are hitting them right now has not happened before, and guess what? It's only the beginning. Think about that for just a minute. It's so easy just to listen to a politician talk, or for people to say things, and you just kind of go on with what they're saying. But if you need to stop, because that's a really loaded statement right there. So basically what's going on, if you haven't been following this, there's kind of right now, I'd say three main fronts. Okay, so let me turn this off. Where's the borders and labels? Where'd they go? Okay, for some reason the borders and labels are not showing up, but that's okay. So you have a large group of, or a large force down here along the Gaza front, and it seems that they're about to initiate the ground invasion. In fact, by the time that I publish this, it'll probably already have taken place, the way that things look, but I don't know. I'm going to show you some details about that. So you have a large force of Israelis down here. You have up here on the border with Lebanon, you have a force up here that's ready to engage with Hezbollah, as well as, it seems, the Lebanese army, because I've seen stories today about artillery fire back and forth between Israel and the regular Lebanese army. So that's concerning. I would have thought that maybe just Hezbollah, but no, the Lebanese army. So you have that. You have down here by Gaza, and then throughout the country, you have different groups that are mobilizing, and also lone wolves that are activating, that are attacking, civilians, fighting with police and troops. So there's already a lot of chaos. Okay, so again, we're hitting our enemies with unprecedented force, but I stress, it's only the beginning. Yikes. Our enemies have only just begun to pay the price. I won't detail what will come next, but I'm telling you, it's only the beginning. You guys, I think that's really concerning because they've already been hit pretty hard. If you've seen the videos coming out, or the videos and pictures coming out of the Gaza Strip, there are like city blocks that have been pulverized, literally, just, the dust from all these buildings that have been destroyed. They've already been hit really hard. He just said that they've never been hit like this before, and it's only the beginning. And so the more that they do this, and when they cross that red line of a ground invasion, and when I say red line, I'm talking from the point of view of these neighboring Arab countries and terrorist groups, I think that's going to activate them. It's going to bring more people into the fight, because they're like, okay, now we have the justification. Now we're going to go ahead and we're going to start to fight. And I think it's kind of like a domino effect, essentially. So it's a really scary time. And if this is it, if this is the final war, then what should happen is, with as strong as Israel is, they won't be able to fight off everyone that's coming in. We know that because everything's supposed to finish with Jerusalem, and Jerusalem coming under siege. So, yeah, I don't know. Later he says, we will destroy Hamas and we will win. It will take time, but we will win. We will win this war stronger. Sorry, we will end this war stronger than ever. Yeah, well, it's probably going to be because Christ is going to come and he's going to save the righteous among you, those that are terrestrial and celestial bound. I think that might be how this ends. Now, I have another window pulled up to look at a few other things. All right, so you might remember that yesterday was the Global Day of Jihad. There was some response to that. So, for example, in China, of all places, in Beijing, there was a Israeli embassy employee that was attacked with a knife, and he was stabbed. And then in France, there was a teacher killed, the result of a stabbing. Okay. But aside from that, and I'll show you a video in just a minute, it seems like mostly the rest of what happened was just kind of rallies and protests in the streets, except for in the case of Jordan, where it seems like there was a large group of people that were actually trying to get into Israel. But I'll show you the footage of that in just a minute. So ahead of this ground invasion, this happened in the Gaza Strip, where the Israelis dropped all these leaflets to warn the citizens to go south, go to the southern part of the Gaza Strip, because when the ground invasion takes place, it's mostly, I guess, going to be in the north, and there's going to be a lot of violence taking place in the north. Okay, so here's a video of like the leaflets being dropped, and there's a ton of them. Okay, here's a guy that's holding one. This says, you'll be relieved to learn that Gazans prefer to believe IDF warnings and not Hamas lies, and they are making their way south. Okay, so you see one of the leaflets right here, and then over here you see a bunch of cars going. According to this video, these are people that are headed south to get away from the upcoming ground assault and ground invasion. Here is a translated leaflet, translated by Google Lens. So let's read what it says. To the residents of Gaza City, terrorist organizations have begun a war against the state of Israel, and Gaza City has become a battlefield. You must evacuate your homes immediately and go to the south of Wadi Gaza. Don't worry, I have a map to show you what that is. For your security and safety, you must not return to your homes until further notice from the Israeli Defense Forces. Public and known shelters in Gaza City must be evacuated. It is forbidden to approach the security wall, and anyone who approaches exposes himself to death. For your safety and the safety of your families, you must evacuate your homes immediately and go to the south of Wadi Gaza. Signed by the IDF. Okay, so this is this is basically the line. This is where they're supposed to go to. They're supposed to go south of this red line. Gaza City is up here, along with these other, suburbs or populated areas. And like they said, this is going to be the main battlefield. And like I said, this could already be going on as of right now. You'll have to check the news or check X and see if anything's happened at this point. Now, the thing about that, okay, if we go to this, Times of Israel, IDF warns 1 million Palestinians in northern Gaza to evacuate within 24 hours. And the last I checked, that's actually been moved forward a little bit because there was like a hospital that needed more time to evacuate patients and stuff. But 1 million people, that seems a little bit difficult within 24 hours. But what do I know? I've never coordinated that before. The IDF notified the United Nations at midnight on Friday that the entire Palestinian population north of Wadi Gaza should relocate to southern Gaza within 24 hours, a UN spokesperson says. The message indicates that the IDF could be readying to launch a ground invasion after 6 days of aerial bombardment in response to the massive Hamas onslaught on Saturday. Roughly 1.1 million Palestinians live north of Wadi Gaza, the spokesperson says in a statement. 1.1 million people within at this point, more than a 24-hour period, but not very long, have to move from here down to here to get out of harm's way, because it seems that this area up here is going to be rocked and devastated. And it already is, just from the aerial campaign that's been going on. Okay, this is a post from the IDF. The IDF's official X account. Breaking news from CNN. Hamas tells Gaza residents not to leave their homes after IDF warned civilians to evacuate. A follow for live updates. So that's not good. Here's video. Here's some people riding on the hood of a car. Hope that they don't fall or anything. People going on foot. Yeah, they're getting out of Dodge right now. Mass exodus of Palestinians from Gaza City to the south after Israeli warning. That's it for that, I guess. I mean, what would you do? You know, hopefully you have family or somebody that can let you stay at their place. Otherwise, what do you do? I'm sure maybe somebody will be able to set up like temporary shelters or something like that if they have the resources. I don't know. But if it was me and my family, I would be like, oh, great. We're going there for an undetermined amount of time. Netanyahu just said that this is going to take a while. It seems like he was referring to the ground invasion. So when are we going to go back home? Are we going to go back home? Is home still going to be standing by the time that we get back? So for some people, this is probably the last time that they're going to see their home, which is very sad, and I wouldn't wish that on anybody. Okay, so in response to the global day of jihad, this is the Jordanians have broken through the army cordon and are heading towards the border with Israel. Now, there's a lot of men. It looks like young men that are in this group. What I don't know, and I haven't been able to determine, is if they were actually trying to enter into Israel, and I think that they were. And my question is, like, once they got there, what are they planning to do? Because it's not like there's somebody on the other side just like waiting to hand you a rifle. Like, okay, good, glad you showed up. Here you go. I mean, I don't know. Maybe there's some armaments that can be handed out, but I don't know if people are just kind of like getting caught up in the excitement. But these are scenes out of Jordan. Let's see. This is also Jordan. I don't know if it's the same location, but I guess people moving toward Israel. Here's another one. Crowds are marching towards the border united. Question is, what are you going to do once you get there? Okay, this is in Egypt. It says these are civil Egyptians crossing the Palestinian border to deliver water and foodstuffs to Palestine. I don't know if this is because Israel said that they were going to bomb, I think, any trucks coming into Palestine, because they could potentially be bringing weapons and ammunition and stuff like that. So I get maybe they thought that they should go on foot like this. I don't know, but whatever the case, that's quite a sight to see. And then throughout the world, this conflict is causing scenes like this where you have these protests and rallies and stuff like that. This is UCLA in California. This is in London. This is in New York. I guess there's some guys doing donuts right here in support of Hamas. I guess that's better than other things you could be doing. Donuts, at least it's kind of fun to watch. But all right, and then we got Paris. I know that there's been a lot going on in France. In fact, I think if I remember right, there was like a state of emergency or the terror threat. Let's see. France terror threat. I could have sworn, yeah, France raises alert to highest level after teacher's fatal stabbing. So France in particular is getting hit really hard right now with these protests and other actions that are taking place. Let's see, the Qatari capital, Doha. Now, I can't verify that this footage is actually real, because for all I know, maybe this is from some other time, some other event. Some of this could be propaganda. Whenever we're talking about, false information on X and stuff like that, sometimes people that are trying to rally the troops will put out false things like this to make it seem like just everybody's on board and everybody unite. So I don't know. I don't necessarily doubt it, though, just using my own judgment and common sense. Jordan, people in the streets. This is also in Jordan. This is in Amman. That's the capital city. Gosh, I wish... Let me try this one more time. Probably have to close out and come back into Google Earth for the border, the labels and borders to come back. Okay, I'll do that in just a minute. Okay, so anyway, I'm in Jordan. And here's a pro-Israeli rally. This is taking place in Tokyo, Japan, and there have been a lot of those. And unfortunately, sometimes these rallies are in close proximity to each other, and then there's violence between the two groups, as you might expect. Okay, presence of Israeli forces in the city of Hebron. where they are reportedly launching a massive arrest campaign. So that's in, if I'm not mistaken, that's in the West Bank. Hebron. Go. Give me just a minute. I'm going to turn off locations. Yep, there it is. Hebron. Zoom out. Yep, it's in the West Bank. And I knew that. There's kind of like the main cities, and I knew that. So there is action taking place in and around Jerusalem, and then throughout the West Bank in general. I did a video recently where we were talking about Lion's Den, which is a terrorist group, and they immobilized, and so there's just like skirmishes and stuff taking place all throughout the West Bank, but I haven't seen anything too big. All right, and then here we go. Confrontations broke out between the IDF and the Palestinians in the Wadi al-Jaz neighborhood in Jerusalem. So here's some of that footage, and then this is somewhere else. Israel, Hamas, going to war for Israel. Okay, this is in Jerusalem. Oh, here we go. In East Jerusalem, a troubling scene unfolds as Israeli forces use tear gas to prevent Palestinians from gathering at Al-Aqsa Mosque for Friday prayers. Yeah, there's a bunch of video of that where they have like blockades and stuff set up where they were trying to limit the number of people, I guess, going to Al-Aqsa Mosque, or otherwise known as the area of the Temple Mount. So, but anyway, going back to this one right here, Wadi al-Jaz. Let's wait for the video to come back around, because there was like at the beginning, there's kind of like these fireworks going off. Like they use that as like kind of like makeshift weapons, which I don't know how effective that is. It does cause a scene, but I need to go back to locations. Sorry, give me just a second. It's a little unwieldy. So let's do the BYU Jerusalem Center right there. And then let's do these different sites of conflict. So the one that we were just looking at, this most recent one, was basically a stone's throw away from the BYU Jerusalem Center. Wadi al-Jaz, somewhere over here, very close to the BYU Jerusalem Center, taking into account that there is this valley, the Kidron Valley, that runs up here. So, okay, so that's taking place, or that has taken place. All right, so things are definitely happening, and we should all keep an eye on it. Things could take place at any moment, is like things having to do with the second coming. And by the way, on that note, before we get into this thing about President Nelson's generation, I have one common misconception that I'd like to address right now. The misconception is the second coming can't happen now because blank hasn't happened yet. So this is from Elder Jeffrey R. Holland in a book called Our Day Star Rising, written by him, came out in 2022, pages 48 to 49. So let's look at an apostle of the Lord and see what he thinks about, is it possible for the second coming to take place right now? Or, are we not, has this not happened yet? Have we not crossed this threshold according to whatever, the book of Revelation? Let's see what he says. All right, he says, and everything you are seeing, more active priesthood, more engaged relief society, more attention to the youth, more temples that are being built, more creations of units, more home-centered experience. As all of this unfolds, every bit of that is an attempt to make us true living disciples of Christ, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year, at all times and in all things and in all places, what we may be in, or that we may be in. That is what is happening in this church, and we have been preparing for it a long time. All the years that I've been a general authority, we have talked about these things. The timing is such that they are coming to pass now. I don't know what that means. I don't think it means the second coming is tomorrow. I don't think it is the day after tomorrow, but it could be Oh, hold on. Elder Holland, it can't be because we haven't seen X, Y, Z, and ABC. Like, it's impossible. It cannot be tomorrow or the day or tomorrow. Why are you saying it could be? Maybe it's because Elder Holland is more in tune with where we're at in the quote-unquote timeline and what the requirements are and how prophecy actually is fulfilled. If we had these like big things that other people promote that have to happen, he wouldn't say that. He'd be like, no, we still got a while. There's more work to do. Or maybe he would even list things that have to happen, but he doesn't. He doesn't. So with that in mind, let's go ahead and move on to this whole idea of President Nelson's generation and Joseph Smith's prophecy. So this is the prophecy, but I'm going to read it from Millennial Messiah. Okay. So he had just quoted part of this discourse or sermon, and then in the next paragraph after that, this is what Bruce R. McConkie says. It was in this same sermon that he said, speaking about Joseph Smith, quote, were I going to prophesy, I would say the end of the world would not come in 1844, 5, or 6, or in 40 years. There are those of the rising generation who shall not taste death till Christ comes. Now that's a really interesting prophecy because we know that it's been a while since he was martyred. Okay, this is Bruce R. McConkie now. The rising generation includes all those yet to be born to parents then living. Manifestly, many of those are now among us and will be living after the year AD 2000 has come and gone. Now, we are in the year 2023, and I would have to assume that that time is really close. Now, what I did is I took the year that he said this, and I put it on my Rising Generation Quotes spreadsheet, and it's in chronological order, and this is what I did. Okay, so if you had somebody that was born that year when he said it, so this would be the parent that Bruce R. McConkie was talking about, I put that right here in this column, or these columns H and I, and then we just go up, fill it out, and let's say that that person had a child. I should zoom out. That's good. Let's say that that person has a child in the year 1923 or 1924, and that person is potentially still living today. In the case of President Nelson, he is living today. But that would require that his father or mother, but in all reality, his father would have been 80 or 81. Now, that's not the case with President Nelson specifically. And I never meant to say that he specifically is part of that exact generation or this model that Joseph Smith is talking about in Bruce R. McConkie. But he's in that generation, it would seem. Okay. Now they're like, well, 80 years old, that's really old to be having children. Even if you are a male, you know, it's virtually impossible for females at that point. But for males, yes, it is. So what I wanted to do is look at a few things. So first, you'll notice that there's a new column right here. And it has a name. There's a name associated with this column, Maria Brañas Morera. Where did I get that? Well, if you go to Wikipedia, they have a few different articles for the longest living people. So for this one is list of oldest living people, and Maria Brañas is at the top of the list. Before that, it was her name was Lucille Rendon, I think, from France. She was a nun. She passed away earlier this year, and so Maria is the next one in line. She is 116 years old and 224 days, and she's from Spain. So if we look at Maria, let's go back to this right here. She is actually older, obviously, than President Nelson or this hypothetical child born in the year 1923. So you go back, and it would be right here, 1907. That's when she was born. And so if she had a father at that time that was 64 years old or older, then she would fit that prophecy of Joseph Smith. Now, I don't have a way to verify what age her father was at the time that she was born, because I couldn't find any resources to verify that. But you have to keep in mind she's not the only one. There's another person that's 116 years old. There's 3 that are 115 years old. There's a bunch here that are 114, and so on and so forth. Any one of these people, we'd have to go through, we'd have to verify their parents and how old their parents were at the time that they had their children. But it is conceivable, but that's not all. There's more to think about. Okay. I'm not sure if I want to. Okay, what? Sorry. Well, let's go to this right now. Okay, so this is from the Washington Post. Al Pacino, Charlie Chaplin, and history's most famous old dads. Interestingly, this is an article from this year on June 5th. Actors Al Pacino and Robert De Niro have been getting mistaken for one another for decades. They're about the same age, and they share Italian names, tough guy personas, and appearances in Martin Scorsese films. And now they will reportedly share one more thing, being really old dads to newborns. Pacino, 83 years old, is expecting a child with his producer girlfriend, Noor Al-Fala, 29. Oh my gosh. Okay. De Niro, 79 years old, recently became a dad for the 7th time. And they join actually a lot of actors of their generation who are in the same boat. The oldest man to father a child in history is disputed. Biblical claims aside, sorry, Abraham, a Baptist preacher in Illinois named James E. Smith claimed in 1951 to have fathered a child at 101, but couldn't prove his age. Neither could Indian wrestler Ramajit Raghav, who said that he fathered a child at 96 years old in 2012. According to Guinness World Records, the oldest father who had the documentation to prove it was Australian Les Colley, who in 1991 fathered a son with his 3rd wife when he was 92. Here are some other notable men who had their mojos working well into their golden years. And here's the first one. We're going to go into him. This is John Tyler. Okay, now this one is very interesting because his grandson is still alive and with us today. All right, so look at this. This is from the Reagan Library Education blog. White House Kids series. Harrison Ruffin Tyler, grandson of 10th President John Tyler. Him right here. He is the grandson of him. He is the grandson of him. That's crazy. So when was he born? I'm about to show you. This is kind of unbelievable. To many, the history of the United States can seem long. Over 2 centuries of political discourse, social changes, and frequent fluctuations in just about everything else. The history of our nation, however, is relatively short, especially considering that a grandson of 10th President John Tyler is still alive today. Born in 1928, so just a few years after President Nelson, Harrison Ruffin Tyler is currently 94 years old and resides in the enduring homeland of the Tyler clan, the state of Virginia. President John Tyler was born in 1790 during the Washington administration. You guys, take that in. He was born in the 18th century. 1790, and his grandson is alive today. Holy cow. All right, later on, so talking about President Tyler. Tyler's first wife, Letitia, died while he was in office in 1842. She was the first presidential spouse out of 3 who would die in the White House. 2 years later, in 1844, when Tyler was 54, he married Julia Gardner and had 7 children with her, one of which being Lion Gardner Tyler. Lion was born when Tyler was 63. His age being one of 2 reasons it can be true that the 10th president has a living grandchild. Lion would go on to be the 17th president of the College of William and Mary, his father's alma mater. The second reason it is possible for one of Tyler's grandchildren to still be living is because Lion also had a child at an unreasonably old age, after his first wife, Anne, died in 1921. Lion married Sue Ruffin, who was 35 years his junior. In 1928, when Lion was 75, Sue gave birth to Harrison Ruffin Tyler, who lives to this day. And let me just double check. And according to at least the Wikipedia page for Harrison Ruffin Tyler, it says that he's still alive. He's 94 years old right now. Okay. So, let's see. Did I have something else over here? No. So, when we're talking about this Joseph Smith generation, we don't know everybody all throughout the world and how old they are right now. We do have this list of people that are known, that somehow they were discovered, they were put on this list. Is this list comprehensive and 100% complete? I don't know. So there's a lot of unknowns, but it's definitely possible that this is the case, that Joseph Smith's prophecy is still valid. And believe me, I would not question any prophecy from Joseph Smith, but that's just me. So even though in the case, even though in the case of President Nelson, his dad may not have been born at the time that Joseph Smith said that, I do feel that he probably is in that group or that generation of people, of other people that may literally fit that prophecy. But there is one other thing that I want to point out. Okay, when we go back to Millennial Messiah, so Joseph Smith says, there are those of the rising generation who shall not taste death till Christ comes. Here's a couple more things that we have to consider. For one thing, it says when Christ comes. So, is always put to me in the comments, well, which appearance are we talking about? Are we talking about Adam on Diamond? Are we talking about Christ coming to New Jerusalem? It's unclear which appearance he's referring to right here. And if Adam on Diamond has already happened, then there you go. Who knows when it happened or how long ago the first sessions were, for example. But secondly, now this is Bruce R. McConkie's interpretation of what this means. I don't know if it's necessarily authoritative. I'll go with it. I'm not going to say that he's wrong, but I wonder if he's just kind of guessing what the rising generation means. Because pretend that you're Joseph Smith and you've seen the future. You know how things are going to go roughly. And you're given this sermon and you're referring to the rising generation. Maybe he's not thinking in technical terms. Maybe he's not thinking, well, the kids right now, like this group of children, maybe he's just referring to, the next few years, the kids being born now, the kids being born within the next 5-10 years, this rising generation. There's going to be some of them that are not going to taste death till Christ comes. So there's different things to consider, but I do think that this is correct. If this is what Joseph Smith said, and because I have a testimony that he is a prophet, and I believe all of his prophecies, then I believe this one too. And I'm not going to really split hairs over anything. I'm just going to trust that in some kind of way this is going to be fulfilled, whether it's according to how Bruce R. McConkie defines a rising generation, or if that's not what Joseph Smith meant, if it was a little bit more broad than that. And then taking into account, like I said, situations like this. How many more Harrison Ruffin Tylers are there in the world? There could be a lot more than what we know. There really could be. So there you go. Those are my thoughts on that. So hopefully that makes sense. And from there, I think I want to just cover a couple more things, and then we'll end it. I didn't want to come back and do this in another video. I have a couple other misconceptions that I'd like to cover here. So there's this one where I just have this one quote. Okay. The misconception is we shouldn't waste our time thinking about the second coming. All right. So that's kind of similar to, we don't need to watch, we shouldn't watch for the signs, because there's sometimes people will say that you shouldn't watch for signs, because they get confused, I think, when they read the scriptures, where you have Pharisees that are looking for a sign to prove that Christ is the Messiah. And so they just apply that to watching for signs of the times, which is a completely separate thing. But so this is similar to we shouldn't watch for the signs. We should only focus on the here and now. But this one is different because it's taught, well, no, I guess it's kind of the same, but it's a little bit more specific. We shouldn't waste our time thinking about the second coming. I'll show you what I mean once I read the quote. So this is from Elder Neil L. Anderson, Thy Kingdom Come, April 2015 General Conference. In that day, in the part that we're looking for is actually toward the end of his quote, but just listen up. In that day, he will not come wrapped in swaddling clothes, lying in a manger, but he will appear in the clouds of heaven, clothed with power and great glory, with all the holy angels. We will hear the voice of the archangel and the trump of God. The sun and the moon will be transformed, and stars will be hurled from their places. You and I, or those who follow us, the saints from every quarter of the earth, shall be quickened and caught up to meet him. And those who have died in righteousness, they too will be caught up to meet him in the midst of heaven. Then, a seemingly impossible experience. All flesh, the Lord says, shall see me together. How will it happen? We do not know, but I testify it will happen exactly as prophesied. We will kneel in reverence, and the Lord shall utter his voice, and all the ends of the earth shall hear it. It shall be as the voice of many waters, and as the voice of a great thunder. Then the Lord, the Savior, shall stand in the midst of his people. There will be unforgettable reunions with angels of heaven and the saints upon the earth. Of course, I would assume that would refer to not only our own righteous, resurrected dead, parents, grandparents, and maybe even children, whoever has passed away in your life, but also the city of Enoch, and then past prophets and stuff like that. It's going to be incredible. All right, continuing, he says, in that day, the skeptics will be silent, for every ear shall hear, and every knee shall bow, and every tongue shall confess that Jesus is the Christ, the Son of God, the Savior and Redeemer of the world. Today is Easter. We rejoice with Christians all over the world in his glorious resurrection and in our own promised resurrection. Now listen to this. As someone says, well, you shouldn't waste time thinking about the second coming. It's a waste of time. This is what an apostle says. He says, may we prepare for his coming by rehearsing these glorious events over and over in our minds and with those we love. And may his prayer be our prayer. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done in earth as it is in heaven. So, no, it's not a waste of time to think about the second coming, and it's not a waste of time to repeat the events in our head and try, the best that we can to kind of have things straight and know what to expect. The advice coming from Elder Neil L. Anderson is that we should rehearse these events in our minds. So, Elder Holland does not have, or he did not mention any sort of, well, this has to happen first. It can't happen tomorrow or the next day because this hasn't happened yet. Nope. And Elder Anderson thinks that we should spend time thinking about the second coming. And then last of all, let's just knock this one out because this is short. This is from Joseph Smith, and I've read this about 1 million times on the channel, but it's always worth repeating. The misconception is that no man knows the day or the hour of the second coming. Sometimes the same people that say we shouldn't waste time thinking about the second coming will be the same people that say, well, no one knows the day or the hour, so it's pointless to talk about these things. So you can find this published in the Ensign, August 2002. It's also in The Words of Joseph Smith, pages 180 to 181. Okay. Excuse me. Did Christ speak this as a general principle throughout all generations? Talking about no man knows the day or the hour. Did he speak it as a general principle throughout all generations? Oh, no. He spoke in the present tense. No man that was then living upon the footstool of God knew the day or the hour. But he did not say that there was no man throughout all generations that should not know the day or the hour. No, for this would be in flat contradiction with other scripture. For the prophet says that God will do nothing but what he will reveal unto his servants, the prophets. Consequently, if it is not made known to the prophets, it will not come to pass. So this is why when President Nelson talks about the second coming and when he says time is running out, and when he calls on us to be the people of the second coming, when he cites the sign of the Son of Man like he did, and on and on and on, all the different things that he said, maybe it's because he does know. Maybe he'll know more as the time approaches. Maybe it'll get more and more specific, or maybe maybe he was given a 5-year warning. Who the heck knows? Maybe that's why in 2019, that's when he said time was running out. And maybe the 5 years is up next year. Who knows? But, and then it could also be that he hasn't told anybody else, maybe not even his counselors, President Oaks and President Eyring. Maybe it's just him that's supposed to know. And just in order to kind of, work things in the church and get things prepared. But at the very least, the prophet is going to know. And he may already know. And then here's the next one. This is related because there's people that say, well, not even Jesus Christ himself knows when it's going to happen. So there's a Joseph Smith translation for that. So this is Joseph Smith translation for Matthew 140, Joseph Smith translation, Matthew 140. But of that day and hour, no one knoweth, no, not the angels of God in heaven, but my Father only. And then Bruce R. McConkie points out in Doctrinal New Testament Commentary, Volume 1, the Gospels, page 667. It says here, neither the Son. Okay, so in Mark 13:32, it did contain neither the Son, as in no one knows, not the angels, neither the Son. But look what Bruce R. McConkie says as he looks at the Joseph Smith translation. These words are deleted in the inspired version. Jesus, of course, since he knows all things, knows the exact time of his return. So you can just throw that one out too. It's not just the Father that knows and that's it. It's also Christ himself, and then the prophet, at some point, it'll be revealed to him. For all we know, maybe every prophet since Joseph Smith has known. Maybe starting with Brigham Young. And maybe it's something that's just reserved just for the president of the church up until now. There's any number of possibilities. But, usually people use these different things, these misconceptions, because they don't want to think about the second coming for some reason. They're not prepared for the second coming. It scares them, or maybe they're worldly minded, so they don't really believe in the more literal aspects of the church, like the resurrection, for example, or Christ's literal second coming. And so they just don't want to mess with it. And so they just kind of brush it off and tell you that you're crazy or you're thinking too much about it, or these really lame excuses like, just all the things that we cover here. We shouldn't watch for the signs of the signs of the second coming. The signs will be very obvious. It's that same type of, it's kind of a different crowd, but the ones that want to basically make it seem like, no, it can't possibly happen soon, and I don't know why. I'm sure some people truly believe that. I tend to think that maybe other people, they just want to push it off into the future. They don't want to think about it. They don't want it to happen. They don't feel like they're prepared, whatever the case may be. But I feel like sometimes people intentionally try and find reasons why it can't happen now. And usually they go on their own private interpretation of scriptures, or only take a handful of quotes from people from the Journal of Discourses without taking everything into account and everything that's been said by modern day prophets and apostles. And if we just listen, and if we collect these quotes, and the more and more we get, the more and more we can be sure of the truth of whatever doctrine we're looking at. So for example, the signs of the times will be very obvious. I have a number of quotes here that say, no, they're not. They're not going to be very obvious. Most people are going to fail to see it, even people that are members of the church. Anyway, I could go on and on, but I think that's going to be good for this one. So if you haven't already, please make sure to subscribe, like this video if you liked it, leave your thoughts and opinions down in the comments below. Also make sure to share it, and I'll talk to you guys later.